What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to take a deeper look into the 2022 draft class for the New York Football Giants. Before I dive into them, though, make sure to check us out on all of our social media at Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at Big Blue Avenue. Now, for those of you who don't know, I already did a little bit of backlog on Kayvon Thibodeaux and Neal earlier this weekend. I mean, I'll touch upon them again a little bit here, go a little bit more into depth, but this video will be a primary focus on picks in rounds 2 through 6 for the Giants. Now, obviously, I think it was an overall rock solid draft for Big Blue. A lot of good picks, a couple of question marks. I'll dive into those in just a few minutes. I'm not going to give out grades. I'm not a big believer in grades just yet, only because we haven't seen these guys on the field. We don't know how they're going to turn out, right? So it's easy to put an A grade on one guy or an F on another, but not know until these guys hit the field, right? It doesn't really matter until they prove themselves at the NFL level. But first and foremost, I think drafting Kayvon Thibodeaux at number 5 overall was a necessity because of the way the draft was going. 4 defensive players were selected. Giants get Thibodeaux, sent a lot of scouts to the Oregon Pro Day, including GM Joe Shane was there. 9 sacks in 2019. Again, 7 sacks this past season. Stats didn't jump off the board, but he did only make 9 starts in 11 games. So he did miss some time, but he's an energizer. He is a difference maker. He's going to play opposite of Ezeudu-G. I'm very excited to have him. He is fast, and he's a very good run defender. Really, really good pass rusher as well. And I'm very excited that Thibodeaux was on the team. Quickly here, Evan Neal. Again, I think they're going to start him at right tackle. Mammoth human, 6'7", 337, number 1 ranked tackle throughout this process. And talking about right tackle, over 700 snaps there. Long arms, 34-inch arms, and the experience, right? 39 games started over the past 3 years. It's something you love to see. Only given up 3 sacks in 3 years. So very, very good stuff and versatility. Common theme you'll hear as I go on through these draft picks. Neal played left guard, right tackle, and left tackle in college at Alabama. So, and I personally think he's pretty clean from an injury perspective. He never missed a practice or game with Alabama due to injury. Now, second round is where it got a little bit interesting for the Giants in night number 2. There were 3 picks overall. The Giants originally held pick number 36. That was the 4th pick in the second round. They traded back twice. And I like that they traded back to accumulate 2 additional picks later on in the draft. But what I didn't like was the player they took at number 43, and I'll explain why. Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver out of Kentucky. Now, this isn't necessarily me not liking this player. It's me saying that I would have gone elsewhere early on in the second round. Again, I like the accumulation of 2 additional draft picks, and I like what Robinson could bring to the table, but the Giants clearly drafted for need and scheme fit rather than best player available. So Robinson, only 5'8", 178 pounds, 4.4 blazing speed, a gadget player often compared to Kadarius Toney, and had 104 catches with over 1,300 receiving yards, both Kentucky records in a single season, and then second team All-SEC. So that was very impressive. And when I think of Wan'Dale Robinson, I think of a guy who can move the chains as a third down converter. His advanced stats are eye-popping, 22 missed tackles forced this past season, 6th in the nation. Does that remind you of somebody? It reminds me of Kadarius Toney, who we drafted last year in the first round, and that's why I don't like the pick. 16 deep catches, 6th in the nation. 35 screen catches as well. He does have a restricted catch radius, and he did have a round 4 to 5 grade on him, which is why I don't like the pick. Again, the player is great. I think Toney is eventually going to move to the outside. I think everybody's going to see time in the slot this year, including Kenny Golladay, with the way that Brian Dable and Mike Kafka are going to run the offensive scheme. But overall, it's not a bad player to add to your football team. I just don't necessarily think a guy with around 4 to 5 grades should be picked in the second round, but I hope I'm wrong. He did transfer from Nebraska to Kentucky and was a good target for Will Levis. I think he could be a dominant player in the slot and be an excellent addition to this wide receiver room because Sterling Shepard's going to miss a good portion of the 2022 season, we think, and then Darius Slayton has drop problems, right? So none of these receivers on the Giants roster currently have proven that they could stay healthy. So I think adding depth was necessary. So I'm happy they took a receiver, just not here. Third round, they addressed the offensive line with 2 out of their first 4 picks, which I love. Not in love with this player, though. Josh Ezeudu, guard out of UNC. 6'4", 308 build, redshirt junior. I predicted a guard to go here at number 67, just not this guard. The problem was guards were flying off the board quick this year. And I mentioned in my mock draft that a lot of people had Cole Strange going to the Giants. Cole Strange ended up going number 29 overall to New England, a guy who had a second, third round grade on him. Very, very interesting. And then Luke Goedeke went in the second round. That's who I had mocked going to the Giants. So am I shocked that Ezeudu, a guy who didn't have a third round grade on him, go in the third round? No, he had a round 4 grade on it. But with the way guards were going in this draft, it was a necessity for the Giants to go out and get one. What I do like about Ezeudu is he has 28 starts across the last 2 seasons, and his versatility is remarkable. He's played left tackle, left guard, and right tackle. That's 4 out of the 5 positions on the line. He started 9 games at left guard this past year and 2 at left tackle. I think he's a very nasty player. He does need a little bit of help with his technique and pass pro stance. He stands up far too often for a guy his size at 6'4". He could be a good pass blocker. He can move. He has some nasty punches to his game. I view him as more a developmental offensive lineman. I don't think he'll be starting this year. I still think the competition for the left guard spot is between Shane Lemieux and Max Garcia at the moment, but we will see what happens there. And I wish the best for Ezeudu. Everybody was fooled. Joe Shane and company, a lot of people thought they were going to watch Sam Howell. That was not the case. They were going to watch the UNC offensive lineman. And again, Ezeudu was on the Giants draft board, and they selected him at 67 overall. So again, there's promise. If they develop him the right way, he could turn into a solid contributor. Number 81 overall. This guy I actually had mocked going to the Giants. I just did not have him going in the 3rd round at number 81. I had him going in the 5th round at 173, and this is Cordale Flott. So about a 90 pick difference there. Cordale Flott, this is the pick from Miami last year. We traded back to get Ezeudu-G. This was a pick that we acquired. Thanks, Davey boy. I predicted him to be a 5th round pick. And now look, this guy's pencil thin. It does concern me, but Giants fans should not be surprised that he was selected. He was a top 30 visit. They like him a lot. 6 foot, 175 pounds. He's a junior. He could immediately compete for the nickel and slot job right away. Again, we don't know what's going to happen with James Bradbury. You want to shore up the cornerback room, right? If he's gone, that leaves you with Adoree Jackson, Aaron Robinson, Darnay Holmes. You drafted Rodarius last year, but who knows how he's going to pan out. So I think it's very important that the Giants added a corner. Again, Shane and company did a good job drafting for positional need. I'm going to give them a lot of credit with that. Now, let's get into the player Cordale Flott. I do think this was the biggest reach of the draft for the Giants, even over Wan'Dale Robinson. I think Flott could be a nice nickel corner. He did move outside this year due to the injuries of Eli Ricks and Derek Stingley Jr. He only allowed 23 completions this past year, 41 tackles, 1 pick, and 3 passes defended. And for a guy who's as paper thin as him, I love his length. Guy has 30-inch arms. Other strengths besides his length are quickness and versatility. What I'm concerned with Cordale Flott is his ability to tackle these bigger wide receivers, right? If he's ever going to move to the boundary, how's he going to match up against a receiver like, let's say, an A.J. Brown, who just got dealt to the Philadelphia Eagles, or a CeeDee Lamb? He's definitely not a year-one starter. He's a developmental piece, special teams contributor, can buy for some snaps in the nickel. But I think Darnay Holmes currently has that on lockdown, even though Holmes necessarily isn't the best scheme fit. So Cordale Flott, I give this a B-. The pick itself, the player, I give a B-. The pick here, I give a C-. I know I said I wasn't going to go into grades, but this pick really got me a little uneven. I thought this was a clear reach by the Giants, but give them credit. They went for the position. They got the player they wanted. They didn't want him to slip away. Maybe there were other teams interested in him. Who knows, right? One can only predict. Over the last 2 years, though, 20 starts, 84 tackles, 5.5 in the backfield. So give the Giants some credit. Round 5 grade player, but they got the player they wanted. Round 4. This is one of my favorite picks of the draft. We needed a tight end. I predicted Cade Otton to go at 112. Otton went 2 or 3 picks before. Giants select Daniel Bellinger, tight end out of San Diego State. This guy is huge. Again, this was one of the picks from the Justin Fields trade up with Chicago last year when the Giants traded back to get Tony. Now, Daniel Bellinger, 6'5", 253, a senior, 32-inch arm, so he can block. He has good length extensions, and he's pretty quick for a guy with his build as well. 4.63 40 yards, so speed, strength, and length are all pluses for Bellinger. He is more of a blocking tight end, which is what we need. I had people come to me and like, why do we draft a blocking tight end? Look, Ricky Seals-Jones is not a blocking tight end. Neither is Jordan Akins. Do you want to rely on Chris Myrick and James Hausman? I don't think so. So this is why you draft a guy like Daniel Bellinger in the 4th round, especially when Cade Otton, who was a top 30 visit, is no longer available. Daniel Bellinger was probably next up on their list. They missed out on Jeremy Ruckert. They missed out on Cade Otton. But I love this Daniel Bellinger pick. I think he could be sneaky good. Like I said, pure blocker, good replacement for Caden Smith. He can catch as well. He is a pure technician when it comes to catching. He's a wide tight end that could line up in line. And you want to talk about run blocking with this guy? 94 positively graded run blocks since 2019. That was the first among Mountain West Conference tight ends. So shout out to him for achieving that. And also does a good job with his physicality in the run blocking. So he is very strong. Also, fun fact, he was first among all tight ends in this draft class at bench pressing at the combine, had 22 bench press reps. And he was also a track and field player, which is very interesting. So like I said, San Diego State, I don't think they used him 100% to the way that I think he should have been used. So it'll be interesting to see if the Giants could use him as a blocker / catching tight end with the New York Football Giants. You know, a lot of big play catches. When you watch his film, there's not a whole lot of catch volume there, but what there is big plays. This guy can make catches, short catches, and turn them into big plays. And that has to do with his quickness, his strength, and his vision up the field. I also read a stat that he had 0 drops last year. Well, that's a really, really, really good sign, right? I mean, Evan Ingram had a lot of drop problems. Ricky Seals-Jones, a guy with drop issues in the past. So, you know, this guy gives me Kevin Boss vibes a little bit, Daniel Bellinger. I like him a lot. As I mentioned, technician when catching the football. I mean, he makes the contested catches very well as well, so he can take some contact. Had a career-high 31 catches this past year for 357 yards and 2 scores. I just think he needs a little bit more confidence in the passing game, and this guy actually did have a round 4 grade. I think he could potentially be the week 1 starter at tight end if he has a good camp and preseason. So 2 picks later, the Giants select Dane Belton, round 4, pick 114. This was a trade back with the Atlanta Falcons, safety out of Iowa. 6'1", 205, a junior, had 5 interceptions this past season. That led the Hawkeyes and tied for 4th in all of college football. He played next to a really good safety in Riley Moss as well. When I look at Dane Belton, I see ready hands at all costs. 46 tackles, 3 in the backfield, 3 QB hurries, and 7 passes defended. One thing this guy does remarkably well, which I think Wink Martindale's going to love, he studies film well. Giants needed some depth at secondary. Jabril Peppers went to the Patriots in free agency. They didn't bring him back. Logan Ryan got released, signed with the Bucs. You need some depth at safety behind Xavier McKinney and Julian Love. Dane Belton could be this guy, also known as Cash at Iowa. His position required extreme versatility. He played some cash linebacker and strong safety, not a position that is really well known. Lost a lot of weight at Iowa last year due to the flu, so that was a little concerning, but he's better now. 4.43 40-yard dash. He's quick, can line up well covering against tight ends, so he's a good tight end coverage guy. Giants have issues covering tight ends, so good job finding Dane Belton. However, he does lose track of the football sometimes, and I did see a 6th-round grade on this guy by Pro Football Focus. So, I mean, these grades, this is what people are predicting, right? I mean, how many people predicted Tom Brady to be the best player of all time, right? And when you look at a good draft class, right, the Giants have 2 shoo-ins, in my opinion, in Neal and Thibodeaux, right? If you can get 2 or maybe even 3 of these guys to hit since you have 11 picks, that's a good draft. That's a good draft. Not all of these picks are going to hit, but I do have some confidence that Dane Belton could be a early contributor on special teams and be a decent backup for the Giants at the safety position. Next up, another trade back pick here. 5th-round pick acquired from the Jets when the Giants traded back in round 2, one of their 2 trade backs. Micah McFadden, linebacker out of Indiana. I like this pick a lot. 6'2", 232, a senior. He's a solid linebacker who could start immediately next to Blake Martinez. Really, his only competition is Tay Crowder. The Giants let Reggie Ragland go in free agency. McFadden in his interview mentioned that he had a few meetings with the Giants over his Indiana career in 4 years, had 216 tackles, 14 sacks from the linebacker position, 36 tackles for loss, and 4 picks. He led Indiana in tackles for 3 straight seasons, made the All-Big Ten team for a 2nd straight year in 2021. This past season, his stat line was very, very impressive. 77 tackles, 15.5 tackles for loss. So this guy could easily stuff the run, get in the backfield, take running backs down. We're going to do some film evaluations on these draft picks as well as we get, a little bit further into the offseason, but 6.5 sacks from the linebacker position as well. This sounds like a steal in round number 5, guys. 3 passes defended and 2 forced fumbles, all in 12 starts. He's a reliable run stopper when I look at him, and he's one of the top blitzing linebackers, very similar to Leo Chenal. And Chenal fell in the draft for some reason. So I was a little surprised by that. I thought Chenal would have been a great fit in Wink's scheme, but I think Micah McFadden is also a great fit in Wink Martindale's scheme. Good physicality and blitzing is a pure strength for McFadden and his 4.63 40-yard. Another thing I like about McFadden that a lot of people I've watched talk about him haven't talked about yet, he trusts his eyes very well. He has good natural instincts, and I personally think he's a true box linebacker. He's not going to be the best in pass coverage, but he's a guy who can blitz the quarterback, stop the run in the backfield, let Blake sit at that 2nd level, eat up the tackles in the run game, but make McFadden throw these disguised blitzes in there. He's a really, really solid player. He did get knocked around a bit by Iowa, Ohio State, and Michigan. Not highly graded by a lot of websites, but I do think this is a good scheme fit at pick number 146. I like him. Next up, the Giants had 2 picks in a row here, 146 and 147. This is DJ Davidson, defensive tackle out of Arizona State. Now this guy, 6'3", 327, redshirt senior, a developmental nose tackle that fits a hole with the New York Football Giants. The Giants needed a nose tackle. I mean, currently, Jelly Ellis is projected to start right now. The Giants lost Austin Johnson and Danny Shelton in free agency. Davidson is a strong kid, 23 bench presses. He stops the run very well. Good technique with his hands and feet, and he's a 2-gap defender, right? He's not going to be on the field on passing downs. I think he's only an early down run defender. Expect him to be a rotational piece in year number 1. He pops and shoves blockers pretty well. This past year at ASU, 57 tackles, 6.5 for loss, 4 passes defended. He did have a fibula injury after his freshman year, but he's been pretty healthy since then. Needs to lose a little bit of weight, in my opinion. And he did mention in his interview that he could play the 3-tech position. Again, some people may view this as a reach. I don't think so. I think Davidson is a little bit underrated. 2 more players to go through, folks. In the 5th round, number 173, from Kansas City through Baltimore, the Giants select Marcus McKethan, an offensive guard out of UNC. 2nd UNC offensive lineman. McKethan played right guard this past season, as where Ezeudu played a combination of left tackle and left guard. McKethan, 6'6", 340, another UNC guard, developmental piece. Giants had a lot of guys at that UNC Pro Day. He's called the people mover, had 27 bench press reps. He looks up to Quentin Nelson. I love his size. I love his length. 35.5-inch arms, and he's a powerful run blocker. He's also really good in pass blocking, 86.3 pass blocking grade. He's powerful in run blocking, but he's not really good with his technique. A 3-year starter with over 2,500 career snaps played. I think moving fronts are going to give him issues. I don't think he'll be very successful at the NFL level, but he could develop into a potential good backup for the Giants. Last pick, one of my favorites at 182 in the 6th round, Darrian, Beavers, linebacker out of Cincinnati. This was a steal. A lot of people had this guy going in the 4th, 5th round. This is an old school linebacker with good character. He's a leader. He's physical, 6'4", 237 pounds, and PFF had a 4th round grade on this guy. I think he rushes well off the edge. He can rush the passer, stop the run, help in coverage. He's the whole package. 0 coverage touchdowns allowed in his college career. I think he's better at attacking plays inside the box, not really a sideline-to-sideline guy. Now, he did transfer from UConn in 2019, but in 2021, he was first team All-AAC, 14 starts, 98 tackles, 11 in the backfield, 4 sacks, 1 pick, 1 pass defended, and 2 forced fumbles. So those are the draft picks for the New York Football Giants in 2022. Kayvon Thibodeaux, Evan Neal, Wan'Dale Robinson, Josh Ezeudu, the guard out of UNC, Cordale Flott, corner out of LSU, Daniel Bellinger, tight end out of San Diego State, Dane Belton, the safety out of Iowa, Micah McFadden, the linebacker out of Indiana, DJ Davidson, the defensive tackle out of Arizona State, Marcus McKethan, guard out of UNC, and Darrian Beavers, the linebacker out of Cincinnati. And before we go, folks, one last reminder, our promo for BetUS, America's #1 favorite sportsbook. You can sign up with our promo code below at join125. Get all the quick and live payouts, betting on your phone. Once again, folks, that is BetUS, where the game begins. Thank you very much for watching our New York Giants NFL draft recap. And folks, without further ado, let's go Big Blue.